It was a quiet summer morning, June 15, 1996. The kind of day that begins without warning, the kind of day where nothing seems out of place, and yet beneath the noise of traffic and laughter something was creeping into the heart of Manchester unseen and unstoppable. The streets were full, the shops were buzzing, the Arndale Centre overflowed with families, tourists and children. The city felt safe, calm, but it wasn't. Something had already entered. Hours earlier, a white Ford cargo van had parked on Corporation Street, right in front of Marks & Spencer. It looked ordinary, like a delivery truck. No one noticed it, no one questioned it, but deep inside, behind reinforced steel and false panels, sat one of the most powerful bombs ever placed on British soil. 3,000 pounds of Semtex mixed with fertilizer, constructed with ruthless expertise by the Provisional IRA. It was more than just a bomb, it was a message, a warning, a ghost from Northern Ireland's decades-long shadow war, and now it was breathing beneath the surface of Manchester. At 9:20 a.m., the first phone rang. Granada Studios. The voice was calm, thick Irish accent, and chillingly clear code word. Chalk, you've got 1 hour. The bomb is in the city center. Minutes later, another call, same voice, this time to the police, then a third to the local newspaper. This wasn't a prank, it was a statement. And those who heard it felt the weight of it immediately. Officers scrambled. Evacuations began, but there was no time for panic. Only precision police began clearing the city center quietly, calmly, methodically. No alarms, no sirens, just hushed commands and growing fear. The clock was ticking. People were confused. Some resisted. Some joked, others just ran. But behind the scenes, security forces knew they were running out of time. At 1:00 a.m., a bomb disposal unit reached the van. They approached slowly, knowing exactly what might be waiting for them. What they found confirmed their worst fears. The truck had been armored, reinforced, designed not just to hold a bomb, but to protect it from tampering. It was real, and it was ready, and there was no way to defuse it in time. They pulled back and waited helplessly. And then, at 11:17 a.m., the ground shook. A flash, a roar, a storm of glass, steel, dust, and chaos. The explosion was deafening. It shattered windows across the entire city. Glass rained down like daggers. Steel twisted concrete, buckled buildings collapsed in seconds. The blast ripped through Manchester's core, creating a crater 15 feet deep, 40 feet wide. The Arndale Centre was torn apart, storefronts obliterated, buses overturned. The force of it was so massive it was felt for miles. Some said it felt like an earthquake. Others thought it was a gas explosion. No one could have imagined the scale until they saw it. Smoke blanketed the skyline, debris scattered 4 blocks, and yet despite the destruction, despite the sheer scale of devastation, not a single person died. Hundreds were injured. Yes, many were scarred for life, but there were no fatalities, and that was not an accident, it was by design. The IRA had called ahead. They gave a warning. They didn't want blood. This time, they wanted headlines, fear, pressure, a demonstration of strength. Just days before, peace talks with the British government. They wanted to show they still had the power to tear cities apart at will. But the mystery deepened. The van had come from Belfast, rented under a fake name. It crossed checkpoints, ports, motorways. It moved freely, undetected, through the United Kingdom, carrying a weapon of mass destruction. How did it pass security? How did it reach the heart of Manchester without anyone stopping it? Some believe the IRA had inside help, others whisper of intelligence failures, or worse, a cover-up that MI5 had suspicions, but lacked proof, or perhaps allowed it to proceed in hopes of a bigger operation, backfiring spectacularly. No arrests were made, no charges brought. The suspects vanished into the fog of war and politics and silence, and to this day, not a single person has faced justice for what happened on that day. The rebuild took years. Billions of pounds poured into the city. Manchester rose again, newer, stronger, cleaner, but beneath the glass towers and fresh streets, the memory remains buried but alive, because what happened wasn't just an act of terror. It was a lesson in control. The IRA showed they could strike with surgical precision, destroy infrastructure, traumatize a population, and still leave without taking a life. They held the line just short of murder, and that is perhaps what made it even more terrifying, because if they could do all that without killing, what would they be capable of if they stopped holding back? What if next time there was no warning? What if next time the silence was permanent? And that's the story. Manchester doesn't always tell the story behind the explosion, the strategy, the ghostly warning, the van that drove into the city like a shadow and left behind a crater that was more than just rubble. It was a scar, and it still bleeds every June. A reminder that sometimes the loudest messages are not in the bang, but in the seconds before it and the haunting silence that follows.